Good morning, Mr. White. How are you?
I am very, very well. I'm excited to be here. How are you?
Living the dream as always, and we have a super special guest with us today for this episode. We have Charis Mullen joining us. How are you, Charis?
I'm well, thank you so much for including me in this fantastic podcast. Love it.
We can't wait to tell your story and hear more about you. So let's just get right into it. So Charis Mullen is alumni from West End State School. She went to primary school at West End State School. She went to Brisbane State High School for her secondary schooling. And then she went to the University of Queensland for her tertiary education. What degree did you do there, actually, Charis?
I did a communications degree, actually. I started journalism and I didn't really enjoy it that much, I've got to be honest. And so I switched to more of a communications and government slant.
Which is serving you very well. So, Whitey, tell everybody more about Charis and her career.
Been state member for Jordan in the Western Corridor, Southeast Queensland since 2017. This follows a career of over 20 years in the public and private sectors, working across a range of industries with a particular focus on planning and development, transport and infrastructure. A terrific grounding in representing one of the fastest growing electorates in Queensland. She's previously held positions on a number of boards, including government and superannuation, and she is currently the Assistant Minister for Treasury. Charis lives in Springfield with her husband, 2 teenage daughters, and Charlie, their energetic Labrador. Fantastic.
Welcome, Charis. How are you?
Good, really good. Thank you.
I need to kick off with, so obviously I've been in education for over 20 years, and so Charis is the state member for the school that I am in, and actually the last 2 schools that I've been in. And in my 20 years in education, we've had a lot of politicians pop into schools, making a kind of an appearance and then leave. And Charis has changed my opinion on politicians, single-handedly has changed my opinion on politicians. And I believe that, I know that Jordan, the area that we're in, is in great hands because Charis is shepherding that area. And I think that if we had more politicians with the same kind of values and morals and care for their community that Charis demonstrates on a daily basis, on a moment-by-moment basis, then I think that Australia would be in very, very good hands. So from the bottom of my heart, Charis, you're...
Oh, my goodness. It's going to make me cry.
And you're an absolute delight, and hence why it's so wonderful to have you here. I know that Charis cares about schools and teachers and students because we see it on a daily basis, not because she pops in every now and then at those big events to make a speech and then run out. She's there. She's just there constantly. She wants to know more. She wants to engage with people. She loves people. So tell us, who was the teacher that positively impacted your life?
So I had a bit of a disrupted start to my schooling in primary school. So even though I settled in West End State School, I was born in Sydney and grew up overseas for a little bit of time. So I went to school in Greece for a few years and then came back and didn't speak any English. And so I had to kind of learn the language again, which was really interesting for a kid who was doing really well in school over there, and then comes back and then no one can understand me. And so that I just wanted to sort of preface that because it really did impact, I guess, those early years of my school life. When I was at West End State School, really settled in well there, lots of kind of migrant kids as well. So we had lots of Greek kids, lots of Vietnamese kids at the time as well, and really found my niche. The teacher that really, though, had the greatest impact on me was Robert Maher, Mr Maher. And towards the end of the previous year, we used to get told who our new teacher was going to be for the following year. And I remember Mr Maher had this real reputation for being quite strict. Like, everyone was like, oh, you don't want to get Mr Maher. Oh, no, Mr Maher, he's terrible. You don't want him. So I we got him. So I spent like the 6 weeks before starting school going, oh no, I've got Mr Maher. What am I going to do? Like, this is going to be terrible. Anyway, turned out to be the most incredible teacher that I could have ever had, and just really went beyond what I thought a teacher was and did. And I think that's partly why I was so inspired by him.
Yeah,
it does
beautiful.
Stick with you, doesn't it, when teachers
And-
go that
and-
extra step and make that connection with you. So
Yeah.
what did you learn from Mr Maher that you use today in your career?
Yeah, so I think one of the things I think that Mr Maher really instilled in me was this idea that you've got to to question everything. I was naturally curious, and I am naturally curious, and I bring that to the role that I have now. So when someone tells me something, I don't go, oh, well, that's nice. Like, I really want to delve into it, like what, why, and how, and what's that about? And I really think I learned that from him and the way that he taught us at the time. So, I think back and I go, wow, like we did all of curriculum, like we learned what we had to learn, but then we learned all of this extra stuff. But he was really big on questioning. Question things and challenge yourself and don't accept what people are saying necessarily, not in a mistrustful way, but just really question what they're saying and find out more and be curious about life. And I think that is something that he really kind of taught me in that year that I was fortunate to have him as my teacher.
And does he know the impact that he had on you?
Well, yeah, like it's really interesting. So he was my grade 6 teacher. Then I had a grade 7 teacher who actually I didn't really like. And I think that's the problem. Once you've had this incredible teacher, then everyone else just, it's probably unfair to that poor teacher when I think back now. But I got through high school, loved high school, really embraced everything that high school had to offer, got to university. And when I sort of started uni, first in my family to kind of go to university. So it was a really big deal. But I tracked him down. I'm trying to remember how I tracked him down, but I
That's
did.
Awesome.
I kind of must have gone through the school, back through West End State School, and said, oh, do you know where, because Mr Maher had left at that stage, and I said, do you know where he's gone? And he'd become a principal in Toowoomba, I think, from memory. And so, and this is, of course, I'm pretty old. This is pre-internet days, pre-email even, really. And so I tracked down the school and I wrote him this really long letter just about, how inspired I was by him, how much he meant to me as a teacher and an educator. And he wrote back, which was really lovely as well. And he said he was just so proud of how far I'd gone, but also really said, it was so kind, but he said, there were a few students who really stood out in his mind. And he said, you were one of them. And it was just a lovely connection that we made. In those later days.
Beautiful.
That's beautiful, and that's so Charis to look to people, look to track a person down, like to go that extra mile to make sure that person knew the impact that they had on you. That's fabulous. You were saying to us off air that he really recognised the nerdy kids, like he. Yeah. What were you saying about that?
Yeah, so I mean, I think, and I see this in schools, and I say this to kids all the time. I think that, there's the sporty kids, and there's the musical kids, and there's the kids that are academic, and I think there's a place for all of them. And I love that when a school really does that, when they celebrate all of the kids. And I think when I was growing up, and this was sort of mid 80s, and there wasn't a real focus on the academic kids that much. I found like it was not that you should be ashamed to be smart, but it was almost a little bit like you downplayed how smart you could be a little bit. And he really celebrated the kids who were smart, and he would, before there was that, extension classes, which they now offer in a lot of schools, he offered that extension to the kids who wanted to learn more and who wanted to do different things. And so he would take us out of class and we would create plays. And, he had all of these things that he had collected over time. And we created this museum in a basement at the school, and he let us set it up, during school time and those kind of things. And so that's not something that many teachers would have done for those kids who maybe he could see that, we were not bored, but certainly, once you've done it, and you've learned it and you're sitting there and you're patiently waiting. And he would say, no, like, let's do more. Let's do more. And I love that. And that's, at a time when, I was the kind of nerdy kid and didn't always feel that I could show that about myself necessarily.
It's a hallmark of a natural teacher, though, isn't it? Looking for that extra thing to teach, even though you've done what you have to do. You've ticked all the boxes, the curriculum is covered. What else can I show these students? How else can I grow the interest in these students and get them to do something that's new and exciting and it's going to engage them? And it's fantastic, really good thing.
Yeah,
but it's not as easy. I mean, that doesn't sound easy, but it's not even as easy as that, because it's not like the rest of the class are just there at the same intellectual clump, and then you've got this handful of bright kids who want more. There's the other spectrum where there's the group of kids in the class who've really been struggling to catch on to that concept and need another 25 repetitions of that to be able to really understand it. So the fact that he was able to do that is actually a really high level teaching ability, which is great.
Yeah. I think also, like, I know, and I hear this from educators a lot about just how packed the curriculum is these days as well. And I do kind of wonder, maybe, back then it wasn't as packed, therefore there might have been a chance to do a little bit more. I think now I would appreciate that it would be so much harder for teachers to be able to offer some of that beyond what he was able to do for us. But to be honest, like, from memory, like, he just let us go. Like, I don't even think he was there half the time with us just doing it. Like, like when we were doing the museum stuff, he would just pop down and check in on us every so often, but he was then back in the classroom with all the other kids. And so, I mean, it's probably, 80s teaching, but, it's like, they just send them off. They'll be right.
Was he smoking a cigarette at the same time?
He was certainly wearing long socks and shorts,
Perfect. A short sleeve shirt. Yeah, perfect, with the tie. Yeah, I love it.
Such an 80s teacher look, that one, wasn't it?
He sounds glorious. He does. So I want to know what so you did your communications degree. So you would have done well at State High. You've gone into communications degree. At what stage did you decide to become a politician?
Yeah, not and it's funny, I say to people all the time, especially when they're, I've got a daughter in year 12 who's trying to sort of work out what she's going to do with the rest of her life, and I'm like, don't stress about it, because I had a plan. I thought, I've got a plan, this is what I'm going to do. So, I did my communications degree. I loved English, and I think partly, again, came from the fact that, for a while there I couldn't speak English and couldn't communicate. So that, for me, I just love the English language, and I love reading. And so I was going to become a book editor. I wanted to work in publishing. I was going to move to London, had it all kind of mapped out. And then in my sort of second year of university, I grew up in a family that was quite engaged in politics, understood politics. We'd sit around the table and talk about it. But as a teenager, you kind of rebel against the very thing that your parents, are doing. But when I was about 19, I decided I was going to go and just check out the university Labour Club. And I thought, I'm just going to go check it out. And if I don't like it, I won't come back. I'll just see what it's like. There was a federal election coming that I was quite interested in. I really liked Paul Keating, and I thought he was quite an interesting because I think he had big policy ideas, and I kind of loved that idea of a politician who actually, sometimes maybe not very popular ideas at times, but really kind of had a vision for where he thought the nation could go. So I kind of was quite inspired by that. So I thought, well, I'll just turn up. So I turned up to this first meeting, and the first person I met there was actually Anastasia Palaszczuk, who was in her sort of early 20s at that stage and had come to talk to us about getting involved in this campaign. And Milton Dick, who is now the federal member for Oxley and is my adjoining federal member, and that was it. I got hooked on politics and on people and how it can really, I think government can really change people's lives for the better. it can also change it for the worse. And so I got really involved that way and got to the opportunity to work in politics. So I went from, wanting to be a book editor to wanting to, work in politics, and had the opportunity to do that. Loved it. Probably never thought I would do it myself. I always say to people, when you know how the sausage is made, you don't necessarily want to go into it. But an opportunity came up, and I thought, I don't want to have any regrets, and I'll give it a go. And if I win, it'll be great. But I never wanted to sort of think, I could have had an opportunity to maybe do something like that, and didn't take it. So and that's kind of the pathway that kind of led me to
that's quite a courageous decision, though, to really step forward into the spotlight, and knowing that not everyone has the same optimistic view of politics and politicians, and so how was that decision-making process?
Firstly, and I think this is a particular issue for women who want to enter politics, because it's about you've got to think about your family a lot. And so for me, I've got an amazing husband and 2 teenage daughters now, but they were probably, I think my oldest daughter was maybe 10, going to be 10 when I decided to do. So it was a family decision. We sat down together and said, and I remember saying to them, if you don't want me to do this, I will not do it, because we all have to support this. And they were, and my husband in particular was very supportive. He said to me, you've been doing this for 25 years, politics. And I remember one night he said to me, when are you going to get yourself elected? You're getting everyone else elected. And I think it felt like almost that was permission to go, okay, now I can do this. So family, I think, you have to have the support of your family. These jobs are really hard. Like you're away from home a lot. Your children, my husband does a lot of that day-to-day stuff. So that was really important. And I also took the view, I'm not here for a long time. And I really believe that. I'm going to do this for a period of time. I'm going to try and be as effective as I can be, and then I'll go do something else. And while I'm there, I'm just going to really do it to the best of my ability. But I'm not seeing this as a 20, 25-year career. Like, this is, I'm here for here. I'm going to work super hard and try and achieve what I can in that time. And I think that's important, because otherwise, and you see it on all sides of politics, people get quite jaded. It's easy to say no to things.
Make that your default answer, because yes takes yes takes more energy than a no, actually, to make something happen.
So and I've got fantastic staff as well, and that's our mantra in our office. The first answer is never no. Like, it is, it's always, let's have a look at this. Let's see whether there's something possible. It might not be exactly what you want, but let's see what we could do. So we never say no as a starting point. And I just see that after a while, and I get it, people get tired and they get a bit worn down by the bureaucracy sometimes, which can be, can happen. Yeah. But, I go, no, we don't accept no. We go in and we just keep trying until, we can get the very best answer for someone. And sometimes it is no, but it's not for want of trying.
It's not the default answer. Just, we never even looked at it as a possibility. And I feel like you're in the right. It's been a perfect synergy between you being in the Jordan electorate and it being you being in the Jordan electorate. So give us some stats on the Jordan electorate. It's pretty phenomenal growth.
Yeah, so it was a brand new seat, actually, that was created in 2017. So I am the inaugural and first member for the seat, and it came out of growth. So it was all about sort of the growth. So we're in a really interesting growth corridor. I kind of take in Greater Springfield, which is, obviously a master planned community, expected to grow to about 140,000 now, just there. And then I've also got Greater Flagstone in the Logan area, and that's again another about 138,000 people expected to be in that region. So it's where it's a lot of young families. It's a lot of people setting up their lives, new home, first homes. We've got one of the youngest electorates, so the average age of the Jordan electorate's around 29. which is quite young, and a lot of children in the electorate. So a lot of young kids in the electorate. Hence why we've got a lot of schools in the Jordan electorate, and it's a lot of it is about good planning and about infrastructure, and for me as well, it's this idea that if living out in the outer metropolitan areas of Brisbane, because maybe it is more affordable, should not then deny you some of the services, and things that you might get in the inner city. And I grew up in the inner city, so I've had that world and it's been wonderful. But I go, everyone should be afforded that opportunity, even if you live 45 minutes or an hour out of Brisbane CBD.
And I see that in your leadership. It's beautiful.
How do you manage those differing requirements? So you've got a growing population there, and you've got a lot of schools. How do you invest in the next stage of this growing young population through jobs and developing reasons for them to stay in the area and grow it?
Yeah, that's the one thing people don't. It's probably the most important to me is that ensuring that we have local employment, because if we can stop people from having to commute to Brisbane all the time, I think it's not only good in terms of obviously congestion, but also just good for people's well-being. Who wants to sit in traffic for an hour there and back every day? And so it's actually, you might get home a bit earlier, spend some time with your kids, go for a walk, do something. So that the job aspect is particularly important, and that's still we're just really really starting that in an area like Springfield. We've done a lot of the development in a sense, but for me it's why we're building a new public hospital in Greater Springfield. Now that's important from a healthcare perspective, but it's also an incredible job generator, that it's and not only just at the hospital, but then the health services that will surround it, and all of those things. So that is really important. You've got to keep kind of always looking ahead about what's next, and that makes it an exciting electorate, I have to tell you. I talk to some of my colleagues who are in more established electorates where it's all built. There's really not a lot more that they're going to be able to do necessarily. Whilst for us, it's, there's always going to be more, new roads and new schools and, more health services and more social services. And I love that idea. The social services is probably the other key area that I'm particularly focused on, because everyone focuses on that hard infrastructure, but what's the safety net for people who are maybe struggling, or, there may be issues going on, and there's social issues everywhere. And I think in new areas like mine, they're not always as well established. So that's been a real focus for me. How do we actually get some of the social services, whether it's domestic and family violence services in our area, or whether it's, even getting GPs can be a bit of a struggle sometimes in areas like ours. So that's the other thing as well. I think everyone always wants to focus on the roads and the infrastructure, but I go, actually, I think that if we can get the social services right, that's actually a really big part of how this area can thrive.
And particularly because it's so new, and there is so much research now on how important those social services are, and have them set up from the very beginning so that people can feel safe and know that they're there to access them, and access them proactively rather than and also reactively. So like I said, I think it's just been a perfect combination of this new electorate and having somebody so vibrant and innovative coming in and being able to lead it.
Yeah, but I also, my kind of tagline is working with our community, because I also know I don't have all the answers, and I've always I'm really honest with people about that. And I think there are people in the community who do incredible work. And I guess one of my favorite things is when you connect one group with another group and go, actually, you're both doing this incredible work separately. How about you come together and let's make it even bigger and better? And that connecting piece is a wonderful part of being a member of parliament, because you do get to meet so many people and being engaged with so many organisations that you kind of hover above and can see, like chess pieces that you can actually
who can I connect with the next person.
And that's actually one of my favorite things to do, is to go, I can't do it all myself, but how can I bring people with me who I know are amazing and are doing this stuff anyway, but need maybe a little bit more help or a bit of a push. And and we do that connecting, and that's the best, actually.
Yeah. And you obviously need to be a real people person for that, to be able to get out there and know everybody's story, to be able to actually know how to make those connections.
Yeah, and I love people, and I get a real buzz. It's funny, I'll go to an event at night and I'll come home and I'm like really buzzing, and my husband's like, "Oh, Charis, it's like 9:30, like go to bed." And I'm like, "No, but I just meant X and they told me Y, and it's so exciting." And he's like, "Yeah, settle down." So I do, and I love it. Like, it's just, and I think I know a lot of politicians who aren't, who are introverts, and I think it's that extra, and I feel for them, because they do it, but it's that extra effort, obviously, that also has to come from putting yourself out there. Whilst I don't have that issue.
Yeah, it's recharging your batteries as you're doing it, as opposed to them coming home and saying, "Hey, I just need silence for the next 12 hours so I can put myself back together before I throw myself back out there again."
That's right.
Yeah. And so what? So it's interesting that you're saying that you're around. This is more of a short, spectacular time that you want to be around for, rather than the long career politician, which disappoints me, actually, because I would be happily waving the Charis for Prime Minister banner. So why not that? What do you think we need in our Prime Minister? What do we need? What does Australia need right now?
Yeah, I think, obviously you want people who are there, not there for themselves, right? But the truth is, you can only do that. I do think you can only do that for a certain period of time, because you do put your life really on hold for a certain, I certainly feel that you do that. And I don't know how fair that is also on an individual. We are normal people, and I think sometimes people forget that. I've got 2 beautiful daughters that I'm raising with my husband, and I, and that's hard sometimes to kind of reconcile the fact that I'm not there all the time, and to be there for them. And your own health, your own health as well. Making appointments to go see the dentist, or, they sometimes go by the wayside. So that's why I think that when the best politicians are those who, yes, they do commit their full self to it, but they also know when it's time to get out.
Yeah,
because they do become, a bit jaded and that's what, when I look at, Anthony Albanese said, it was sort of interesting. He said, we're not going to waste a day in government, and they came in with a lot of energy. And I think he's a bit like that. He goes, we've got a certain amount of time, and we've just got to, we've got to do our very best. And I think that's where that's what works, I think, really well. And I think people see it. I think people are really smart in our communities these days around politics, and they can see when someone's just phoning it in, and someone who's actually really engaged and wanting to make change.
That's really absolutely right. I mean, we want people there who are energized and fired up and want to do things, and that takes a lot of effort. That takes a lot of, you're in the public sphere all the time. It must be very draining, and I can imagine that you want to give 100%, and then you might want to step back and do something different.
Yeah, and you can. I think that there's, my favorite thing would be, I can't wait to retire and just volunteer. I think that would be just so awesome, to be able to just do some of those things. But also politics is different these days. From when I first started working in it, there was no social media. There was no mobile phones, to be honest. I mean, we used to page our ministers on a pager, if we needed to reach out to them. So social media makes it acceptable for people, I think, sometimes to be quite negative and cruel. And I think if you focus too much on that, it can wear you down. So I tend to, and that's not to say I get a lot of good feedback on social media. I get a real sense of what the community's thinking on issues. But you can do that in a way that's, productive and not not just nasty. And so that can wear you down a bit, I think, that side of politics these days, because everyone's got an opinion.
Everyone has an opinion.
Everyone can air it nowadays as well.
Yeah. And it's similar in lots of ways to teaching, because everyone has an opinion on education and teaching because they've all been to school. So everybody knows in their minds, everyone knows as much about teaching and education as a qualified teacher does, because I've been to school. I know the answer to this. I know the fix to this.
Until we all had to teach our children through COVID. Yes. And then we were like, oh my God,
respect.
Oh my gosh, they're the most incredible people I've ever met. Like, that was hard. And that, I think, and I do think people did realize that, actually, when they had to actually sit and teach their own children, they actually went, oh, hang on a minute.
because really teachers spend more engaged time with, well, I guess I speak for myself here. So my son Xavier's teachers spend more time engaging him every day than what I do, most definitely. Because when he comes home, we have a chat, and then we sit beside each other and we don't do anything, and we eat dinner and we have a chat, but it's not all about engaging him. And then we'll go off in different directions. And on the weekends, his sports coaches engage him, and it's not me. So I spend very little time, actually, compared to those teachers who are 70-minute blocks, having to engage him, hopefully, for every minute of that time. I expect them to be engaging him for every single minute of those 70-minute blocks, which is outrageous. I can't do that with my own son. So they don't know him as well as I. So why am I, as I'm actually verbalizing that right now, that's really harsh. And I'm a teacher. So in lots of ways, like similar to a politician, because we expect the world from our politicians. We expect you to be able to make this country greater than it is right now and solve all the problems. One great thing, so obviously Whitey and I are on holidays right now. So the great thing about teaching is that we can be spectacular for 10 weeks, and then we can go and hibernate for 2 weeks and piece ourselves back together. We always get sick. Teachers always get sick in the holidays, and that's just the body gets used to working extremely hard and then piecing back together, and which is why those holiday breaks are so absolutely imperative for teachers, so that we can be spectacular for 10 weeks. It's different for politicians. You don't have it kind of does, like, you don't have the weekends often to piece yourself back together and to recharge. It does seem like it's a 24/7, 365 day a year kind of job.
I think it is. And look, there is a freedom to it though as well, because you are almost your own boss. So you can kind of set your own hours in a sense. If you're like me, you just, you get mofo. So you want to do everything, it's like, oh yeah, I want to do everything. My staff are really great sometimes. Like if there's a Sunday and there's this just one event that comes into the diary, and it's good, but it's, it's not going to be something that I desperately need to go to. They will say to me, no, you're not doing that. You are going to have the day off. Like, you are actually going to, have some time off. And they've been really wonderful to help me with just managing myself more than anything. But you're right. Like, you do need a little bit of that downtime yourself, just to recharge and usually for us, it's over that Christmas period, just because it is quieter for us and everyone's kind of away. And I love it because it actually allows me, I get very then creative because you've got the time to think. So for me, it's like, okay, what are we going to do this year? We're going to do this and we're going to do that. So that I find I need that. I need the downtime because it actually helps me be more creative.
Yeah, definitely.
In terms of my life and in terms of what I want to do in the electorate.
Yeah. Your brain needs to be able to go quiet for a bit to be able to have that creativity really to be sparked.
Yeah. So I do try, and I am trying to be a bit better at kind of being a little bit more kind to myself around some of those things as well, and take a day off every so often and not feel guilty about it all. Like on Sunday, I've got 3 events, right? So it's not, it's not like I should feel guilty that, and occasionally I might take a half day off or something.
And frankly, you need it. And the electorate of Jordan needs you to do that as well, because you've just said you're not going to be here forever. you're going to be here for a sparkly period of time. But for it to be really sparkly, you've got to give yourself a chance to have those quiet moments to rest. And because we want to elongate that that time that sparkly time that you're going to be here anyway. Yeah.
So I don't have any, it's so funny. You do hear particularly about teachers, they go, oh, but they get all these holidays. And I just go, I do not begrudge teachers their breaks, because it's intense. Like there is no way that I could do that. I've got a sister who's a sister-in-law who's just become a teacher in the last few years, and she's loving it. But I can see that it's actually like hard, hard.
Well, because we're literally changing lives every day. Every moment is really important. It's a big moral responsibility, and we have the most amazing moments that you can have with children and having an impact on them. But then you need to rest. You've got to let your brain be able to go quiet. And in those 10 weeks during the term, there is no chance for quiet brain time at all.
No, I get it. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's what this podcast is all about. It's all about celebrating the profession and the great bits, acknowledging that it's not an easy job. So if you want an easy job, don't become a teacher. But if you want a spectacular job, come and become a teacher. And fellow teachers never begrudge their fellow teachers their 2 weeks holiday after every 10-week block, because they know just how hard they are working during that time.
We're also drained. I mean, we're also drained at the end of every term, right? Like even as parents, I'm just like, I just need 2 weeks off from making lunches. And then from just checking that, everyone's got what they need.
And timelines and checklists. Absolutely.
Just that lovely period of being able to, it's been lovely to just have these last few weeks, the Easter break, to be able to and you just see your kids decompressing as well. And I think that's really nice as well.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Waddy, you had a question about the maiden speech.
Yes. Charis, I went back and read your maiden speech, and I noticed that you quoted Gaddafi. And I'm wondering, are you any closer to understanding what ithacas mean?
Look, not yet. I think I'm getting there. And I think that was interesting. So Gaddafi was partly because I actually do love the poem, but also it's my father's favorite poet, and I really wanted to honor Dad, who really was very inspirational to me in terms of politics, because he's really the guide for me. But I think I wanted to put that question out there, that I didn't come with a single purpose, and that I wanted almost like the electorate to shape what my journey was going to be. And I still think I probably will know towards the end of that journey, but I still have a little bit more time to go. So I'm not quite there yet, but I'm certainly starting to get a sense of why I'm doing this, and why I've been put into this very privileged position to be able to be an elected representative in in a parliament, which I never take for granted, because not many people get to do it, and so we are really lucky to be able to do that. But not quite there yet. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I will definitely, I think, know in the next.
The first step to knowing is asking the question. So I love that.
Yeah, which leads me back to Mr Maher, who taught me that. That was all about asking the questions and listening really carefully as well.
Love it. All right, we could talk to you all day, but you've actually probably got 19 other appointments today. So we want to finish with the alphabet game, if you're willing to play the alphabet game against Mr White. Awesome. Let's hear what Monty has to say.
Play alphabet game.
Excellent. Thank you, Monty. I could also hear him screaming through the door just before Mr White.
Putting on a brave face, sitting here pretending I don't hear that screaming outside. And I'm sorry.
Oh, I could hear he's put a dumbbell against the door, Charis.
Stop them from coming in.
It's all good. I've got teenage daughters. I'm at home at the moment, but they're both still asleep, as you can imagine. So that's
I can't wait for those days.
Yes, Mr. White's been up for 6 years now, so he hasn't slept for that long.
I remember.
All right, so we're going to play the alphabet game. So I'm going to ask you to name something in a category, and then I will give you a letter. It's going to be best of 3. So you just need to call out your answer. Mm-hmm. So let's begin. Let's go with
best of 3. Best of 3. Yes, best of 3. Okay.
Best of 3. Yes. All right. Name a snack starting with F.
Fries.
Fred. Oh.
Nice price. All right, Mr. White, he's off to a start.
Okay.
All right, here we go. 1-0. All right, name a Queensland electorate starting with M.
McAllister.
Oh, loaded question.
Indeed.
Hello.
You were never going to get it.
Hey, you lived in Brisbane. You could have. Is Mount Gravatt a
Not anymore. Used to be.
There you go. Cool. Yeah.
So what electorate's that?
Oh, it's changed now. It would have been. It's Cooper now. Right. But probably would have been like Paddington or something like that. Maybe once.
All right.
One all.
Are we ready?
I'm feeling the pressure here.
All right.
It's got to be good.
All right.
Oh no.
It's really not that good. All right, I'm just trying to pick my appropriate one. All right, name what is the best name for a Labrador starting with C?
Charlie.
Oh, there we go.
I think
Goodness.
I think that was a little biased.
What are you talking about?
Always let the guests
win. You can see why I'm yet to salute here. I'm yet to claim victory, but I got pretty close there. But,
you did.
I think,
impressive.
I think the right person won. Well done.
Nice work. All right. So, Charis, how can anybody reach out to you, or is there anything that that you have in your calendar coming up that you would like to promote to teachers or the listeners on Teachers Change Lives podcast?
Something that I have got coming up that I'm really always excited about is that I do a P&C, P&F networking night, and that's going to be coming up soon, because I also love the parents who do, where they can, be really engaged in their schools. And so that's something that, and the P&Cs love it, because they love actually getting together and actually, again, that connection of being able to get together. So that's something that I've got coming up. Something else that I've got coming up that's really important to me is I instigated a domestic and family violence vigil in our electorate, particularly around Greater Springfield, to raise awareness around domestic and family violence, which is very prevalent in our communities. And so this is a remembrance night that we have around the Greater Springfield Lagoon, around the Orion Lagoon. And it's a beautiful night, and that's going to be held on the 4th of May. And we invite the entire community to come along to something like that. So it's really important to me, and I get a lot of support for it through our community. But it's that constant reminder that sadly this issue continues to prevail in our communities.
I love it. We're not sweeping it under the rug. We're going to name it and we're going to address it all together. Excellent. And I will most certainly be at that event. So thank you very much. All right, Mr. White, another very privileged interview that we've got to be able to do. So thank you very much, Charis. Is there so how do people reach out to us, Mr. White?
Via email on teacherschangelivespodcast@gmail.com. We're also on the TikTok and the Facebook and all the other things on the interwebs. Is that right? Yes.
Excellent. Exactly, on the interwebs, correctly. Yes. Excellent. Teachers Change Lives podcast is what you can put into pretty much anything and find us. As we heard from Charis today, Mr Maher made a big difference in her life. We want people to keep on reaching out to us and naming and faming their amazing teachers. And we want all of those people out there listening and considering teaching to choose teaching, because it really is the best profession in the world, where we get to create all other professions. So, and Charis told that story beautifully today about Mr Maher and the impact that he's had on the electorate of Jordan because of him being such a great teacher. So thank you again to our guest, Charis, and thank you, Mr White, for the work that you're doing with your children, keeping them out of that room today, and the work that you're going to do by taking them to the playground now and letting them run wild.
Thank you, Mrs. Angel.
No worries. And we'll see everybody next week. So take care of your kids in your classrooms and keep tuning in. All right, bye everyone. See you, Charis.
Bye. Thank you.
Powered by Riverside.